2016.
Back. Here to face the music. It's a Views from Section 400 podcast. It is what it is. It's been a disastrous weekend, chaotic weekend, fun weekend, but nonetheless, we arrive here recording Monday night to, as I opened with, face the music. Now, there's some things that need to be addressed. Before we get in to Brian, I have to go. And I just saw on the live show on Saturday, right? I already made my case clear. It's the elephant in the room. My phone blew up about it. Everybody's pissed off. Rightfully so. I was extremely passionate about the pick. And it's the McNeese State Cowboys. Will Wade let me down. That team let me down. I had everything more than monetary value on that game, on that team, on that run. And it blew up in my face in a big way, right? Like, it wasn't close down the stretch. It wasn't close at halftime. It seems like people had a lot of money on that pick, which I was not expecting. I guess I did a very good job persuading people. So my sincerest apologies. You will not be getting any money out of me. All you're getting is an apology. Hopefully in the next one, we can make something happen. Now, McNeese State, they started the game off shaky. They went up 2-0, which I was obviously fired up about, and then it was downhill from there. I don't think they had a lead the rest of the game. They did try and put high pressure at half court, force them to make long passes, try to create turnovers. The turnovers didn't happen. Forced Gonzaga nothing inside, forced them to take deep threes. Unfortunately, Gonzaga isn't like some of the teams they played all year, and Gonzaga was able to make those deep threes. I don't know what it was. They came in fired up, came in ready to go, but I mean, they were not missing. Like, this wasn't like, oh, they hit a couple shots, missed a couple shots. Like, this was like they were on fire. Mark Few had his guys ready to go. They weren't scared about McNeese. As I addressed in the live show, I did watch the team all year. I did make some good money on them. And maybe I should just stick to Southland Conference betting, because once they get outside of the conference tournament, it was a disaster, and a disaster in a big way. So I don't have any way to defend it. I just that's the angle I took. I have a buddy who has some very close connections to the Hard Rock Casino and the Hard Rock Sportsbook. Apparently, 10 minutes before the game, there was a very sharp group that came in and laid $100K on McNeese State money line, $100,000. So think about those guys right now. They were blowing like layups that I see CYO kids in 6th grade make. So it's a bad beat, a bad beat. They don't make it to the Final Four. They don't make it out of the first round. But my only silver lining is Iowa State is still alive and well. People forget about that play. They definitely jumped to McNeese, rightfully so. Forget about going 5-0 in the divisional round. They jumped to McNeese State. It's easy to forget all the good and easy to jump on the bad. But I understand life is what have you done for me lately? And I deserve everything I got and will continue to get for that pick. I just hope Iowa State wins it all so that I can have some kind of common silver lining from that whole disastrous debacle of a weekend. I'm sorry. I'll leave it at that.
Matt, we appreciate that. We really do. Had some people come up to me, some Views from Section 400 club members come up to me over this weekend, let me know that the McNeese State pick, it really hurt them. So for you to come out here, man up to it. Look, guys, nobody's perfect. You're going to miss a beat. You're going to miss a bet every once in a while. Happens. Passion play didn't work out. Speaking of passion plays that didn't work out, I'm almost on the edge of checked out for the rest of March Madness. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but Auburn lost. Had them going, forget about my brackets. Obviously, I had them win it all, but just the fact that I can't watch any more college basketball without thinking about the fact that Yale beat us this year. Yale, after Chad Baker-Nazara throws a stupid elbow into some white boy's gut, gets them kicked out of the rest of the game. Little exaggerated, in my opinion. You could have given them a technical one, been like, what the hell is that? Cut it out. Didn't really need to eject them for the entire game. The fix was in. I'll tell you that much. If I have one takeaway from that game is Yale got every single call they possibly could. Look, they're smart guys. They are smart guys. They're at that school. They know how to get the foul calls. They were tossing their heads back every time they went up for a shot and a layup. I mean, look, they made it happen. Auburn didn't execute as well as we needed to. We definitely made some stupid plays. Just to cap it all off, I was with all of my Auburn alumni, Brian included. We were all at a bar watching that game in Alabama together. Couldn't have been any more disastrous. Really could not have been. Very disappointing way for the Auburn Tigers to end the season. I'm going to hang my hat on that SEC championship banner this year, but outside of that, pretty disappointed with how this came to a close.
Yeah, I really couldn't have said it better myself there. I will address, before I get into my soggy sorrows about Auburn, I will say we may have lost the basketball game, but we did win the weekend. Congrats to the newlyweds, Ben and Anna. Hell of a weekend, hell of a wedding. Had a great time.
Yeah, Brian, if you saw on the live show, Ben had time to get in there and say some stuff. And I was like, Ben, you're getting married, man, and you're clocking in on the live show. And Brian's nowhere to be found in a Waffle House somewhere.
Blame the Waffle House staff, man. We were sitting in that place for way too long.
I said, props to you, Ben. Wedding day or anything, you're in here clocking in, saying a few comments. So I just had to say, props to you, man. They're just I don't know what keeps you off the Views from Section 400 live shows, because clearly your wedding day, you're still clocking in, man. Love to see that. Absolutely love it.
Maybe don't show this part of the podcast to Anna, but
it was quick. It was brief.
Yeah, no, I mean, everything that Matt had been preaching about Auburn kind of came to fruition in that game. The guard play wasn't great. They went on stretches where they couldn't score the basketball. And at the end of the day, like, they just got outplayed. And I said this last year after they lost to Houston, which is a game they should have lost, but they had a chance to win. Bruce Pearl is a great person. He's a great ambassador for the Auburn family. He's a great Auburn man. But at the end of the day, he's just not on par with the tactical kind of coaching that it takes to win a national championship. And we see that like every year with his team doesn't box out. They play defense very recklessly. And I believe he can lead a team to the championship. He led a team to the Final Four. But as long as they continue to play kind of this reckless brand of basketball, it's going to be difficult. And yeah, I'm sad. I'm sure you guys saw the pictures of me at the bar, hands on my head. I was stunned. It sucked. The game sucked. Like Matt, I still do have my national champion, and we'll get more into their crazy game with Oregon later when we dissect this whole weekend. But yeah, it was a rough game, and like Jack said, losing to Yale, but no one wants to see an Ivy League school upset a team. Yeah,
well, we saw in the following round, didn't Yale lose by like 40?
Yeah.
I saw like was a blowout, and then I think it got worse as the game progressed. But I saw they went down by a decent amount. I was like, oh, this game's over. Like they didn't even put up a fight.
Yeah, in a way that just made the loss that much worse too.
Yeah, because that's a team that Auburn, I think, any other day probably wins by 25.
Yeah, if Chad Baker-Mazara doesn't throw a stupid elbow 3 minutes into the game,
honestly, I turned the game on a little late, and I thought he was like running to the locker room to take a shit. Like
that's what we thought at the bar.
I thought it was like a run to the bathroom because he's got to take a shit. And then the guy just never came back out. I was like, I guess he got ejected.
It was such an away from the play thing. Like we just thought he was going to take a shit or like get taped up or something, and then they show the replay and we're like, "What are you doing? He just threw an elbow. No need to even be in the play."
Yeah, it was a bonehead move. It really just took the air out of us for the whole entire game. One of the things that I was really looking forward to during this run is the fact that Auburn was so deep, and if you lose a guy, a Chad Baker-Nazara, a Dylan Cardwell, pretty much anybody outside of Broom, you can make up for it with the other guys we have. Even someone as important as Jalen Williams. If someone goes down with an injury, Auburn's depth was going to be one of our strengths during this run. A little different than that Final Four run we had when Chumo Kiki went down. That was a game changer for us. And we really didn't have a shot to win it all after he went down, even though we ended up winning another round behind the shooting, behind Bryce Brown and Jared Harper. I always just call him Vino. But that was a kind of injury where that was devastating. This year, Chad Baker-Nazar goes out 3 minutes into the game. I didn't think that was going to be the end all, especially round one against Yale. I mean, we could have fought through that. We should have fought through that. And it's not like we got blown out in this game. This was a tight game the whole way through. We just really needed to make that run that separated us where, if Yale got one of these calls here and there that, bullshit ref call, we use our size, we use our strength, we go out and we get the next one, but we just couldn't put together a good run late in the game.
They were consistently up like 8 or 9 points, and then they just go 3 or 4 minutes without scoring, let Yale get back to within like 3 or 4, and you just can't do that against inferior teams. And that's where Baker-Mazar is so important because he's really the one guy. I know Broom's great, but Chad's the one guy that can kind of just create his own shot from the mid-range or from 3 and make something. And when the offense isn't working, like they go to him. And when you don't have that, and when Bruce Pearl isn't preparing to not have that, and you're playing a bunch of smart kids that go to an Ivy League school, it's just a recipe for disaster. And that's exactly what it was. And we can't talk about the end where Katie Johnson missed free throw, and then Trey, of course, the missed free throws. I will say I don't blame them for that loss. We should have been up at that point.
Yeah, I don't think free throws at the end of the game was the reason you lost that game. There was way too much shit in between that. Like you said, dude, there were times where I was like Yale got close and then Auburn would pull away, and it's like, dude, Yale doesn't have enough to fight and claw back. That's what it felt like. It was like, oh, they're just like, there's no way they can, like, they don't have the talent, the power, like the shot making ability to like climb all the way back. And like they just did. They climbed all the way back into the game. And it's like a tale as old as time. If you let an inferior team hang around, they're going to win the game. It's like you see it all the time. I can't tell you how many times I've seen it with the Eagles just this past year. Look at the Cardinals, for example. The Jets, when you let just across the board, you let somebody hang around, they're going to have faith, they're going to believe, and they're going to win the game. And it just
and a lot of help by the refs.
Sure. You can always. I think the refs in general for college basketball are usually on the hot seat. So I don't, think there's bad calls both ways across every game. Should never even came into the refs' hands because should have been a blowout regardless.
For me, it's exactly what you said. It's letting them back in, going on a couple cold stretches, letting them back in, and then the refs just fucking put the icing on the cake. Every time it got close, the refs were like, "Oh, we can do something about this," and they did. That's what it felt like to me watching that game. I know it's always easy to take the cop out on the refs, but basketball, when every single play can be affected by a ticky-tack, I'm going for a layup, he got him on the arm, no, he didn't kind of thing. Definitely seemed like the white boys at Yale were getting every call they could.
Well, yeah, when it gets to that point where you put it in the ref's hands, it's not a good
too late.
It's not a good feeling.
We were sweating the -10 at halftime. We thought this thing was a blowout. They were up like 7. We're like, can they get to 10? Can they get to 10? It was joking about how much can they cover by, and then it got to, oh shit, we might lose, and then it got to, oh, we lost.
So Brian, now that you're like cool down, not drunk, will you now go on the record and say that neutral games are the same as away games?
No, because Auburn won 2 neutral court tournaments this season.
The SEC championship, that was an Auburn home game, dude. Y'all packed that shit out like crazy.
I mean, it was in Nashville. We travel well, but
it's Auburn North.
Can't really call that a home game.
It was dominated by a lot of Auburn fans.
There was a lot of the jungle up in Spokane. They were going to
win Auburn. Either way. Disastrous weekend for Views from Section 400. Disastrous. I mean, at least Auburn game was close. Should never been close. But, I mean, McNeese, you could have turned that off. I mean, dude, that McNeese game, it just felt like just get to halftime down 6 or get to and it was like halftime was just not coming, dude. It was like every possession up the floor. It's like, oh my God, just like kill the clock, like get to halftime within 10. Like every time I check, bro, it was like 30 seconds would come off. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like the clock is not going quick enough. I kept thinking there's like 4 minutes left. There's like 14 minutes left. I'm like, there's too much time, too much of a skill gap. I do think if they didn't come out as flat. I mean, if you actually watch the game and you see all those layups that McNeese State missed, they should not have lost the way that they lost. Gonzaga knew they were rattled and scared because they were giving that, like, they would fake like they're playing defense and back off. And then like it was just blown layup after blown layup. 3-pointers were just not even competitive shots. I mean, they were like, I could have went out there and chucked up the threes that they were chucking up. Yeah, look, passion play, watch the team all year. I think I'd be more of a fraud if I didn't have their back and just folded on them. I know I said great draw against Gonzaga, but deep down, I was fucking rattled. Blame it on the committee. I think they fouled the entire bracket up, and it could have been way better. But they didn't do it. McNeese State goes home. Great year, Will Wade. But hey, he didn't win. So now it just means there'll be a wagon next year because he's not going anywhere but McNeese State. So get ready to bet them in the Southland next year. That's all I got to say there. And then in terms of Auburn, obviously, not the way they expected that one to go. And I agree with you, Brian. Like Bruce Pearl, great guy, energy guy, good for college basketball, good for Auburn. But when it comes down to just being like a skillful mastermind coach, he doesn't have that edge, or it doesn't seem as if he has that edge. And that might be the difference in Auburn, ever getting over the hurdle of actually winning a national championship. But yeah, other than that, I mean, disastrous couple picks for us that we were pretty passionate about, made videos about. I hate rewatching them. It's horrible watching. Like the first video of mine is just like immediately going off about how much I love McNeese State. Can't be perfect, like you said, Jack, but we'll just get him on the next one is all I can say on that. Is get him on the next one. Iowa State's still alive. Brian, what, you have Creighton?
Yep.
And Creighton's still alive. So, I mean, we have a silver lining. How great would it be if they faced off in the national championship? I don't think they can.
That's what
can
we need.
Can they face off?
They're on different sides.
Oh my God, an Iowa State Creighton national title. That would be phenomenal. Let's jump into the Michael of the week and then dive back into college basketball. I think that's enough sorries for one intro.
So Jack, you mentioned the college referees. So my Michael of the week is a stat, and then I'll kind of go into a little rant here. So Houston won an overtime game against Texas A&M yesterday or Sunday. They had 4 players foul out of that game. There were a total of 52 fouls called in that Texas A&M and Houston game in 45 minutes. That's over a foul a minute. Houston did win, first team to win with 4 players fouling out since 1987 when UTEP did it, and that's in the NCAA tournament. So I'm interested if what you guys think the average fouls per team per game this season was in college basketball.
I'm going to say 18.
Each team's usually going to the double bonus, which is 10 fouls. And then there's usually a couple fouls afterwards because the double bonus, you want to go watch them. So I was going to say like the 22 to 24 range.
So the average is 16, actually. So I guess in the first half, teams aren't getting to the double as much. And then the second half. So that's 32 total per game, 16 for each team. The worst this year was Southern Indiana with 21.6. Right now in the tournament, we're seeing games consistently go over 40. So the worst team this season committed 21 fouls per game. We're seeing that as an average in this NCAA tournament. I mean, I already talked about Houston and Texas A&M. We saw 47 in 40 minutes in the Bama Grand Canyon game last night, which was an absolute scene. That game was terrible basketball. It was just a guy who would drive in, get breathed on, and then get a foul call, go to the line. 44 in the Auburn game, and Yale had, I think Auburn got 27 called. Yale had 19. That doesn't add up, but Yale had more than Auburn in that one. And then in Kansas, this might be the most egregious ref show I've ever seen. It was only 42, but possibly the worst call of the NCAA tournament and the worst call of this season. Jacob Timberlake going up for that dunk with 14 seconds left in the game. Sanford guy comes in, blocked by James, completely clean block. Ball bounces a couple times, and then the ref blows the whistle, goes to the line. Kansas wins the game. Would have been like possibly a 5-on-3 on the other end with Sanford going for the win. But they pretty much decided that game with that call. It's just the Big East tournament does it right, every year they don't blow the whistle. They let the kids play in the tournament. And now we're seeing just, I don't know if they want the points to go up and they want like, they think that's going to increase viewership or what the deal is, but we're seeing way too many fouls.
Look, more whistles, more stoppages, more TV timeouts, more ads, more ad revenue. There you go. I feel like it's happening at a very fast pace now throughout a lot of sports where we're really moving towards the entertainment part of it. I don't want to spend too much time on this right now, but the new NFL rules that they just released, all of it is gearing towards air safety, more stoppages, more reviews. It's getting ridiculous. Everything's going towards the entertainment side. And maybe you want to call me a conspiracy theorist? Sure, I don't care. But if you're going to double the amount of fouls that are being called during March Madness, I'll tell you why. It's because there's a lot of eyeballs on these TVs, a lot of people watching these games, and they want more stoppages, more ads. My Michael of the week, it does have a little bit to do with the refs, but no, it's more just about the SEC and how surprisingly bad they were in this tournament. Tennessee is still alive. He who shall not be named, they're still alive. But overall, out of the 8 teams that got a bid, 6 are already out. And a couple of them lost in pretty brutal fashion. We already talked about Auburn losing to 13 seed Yale. That was the second worst loss. The worst loss also suffered by an SEC team, Kentucky, a 3 seed, losing to number 14 Oakland. We've seen Florida go down, Mississippi State go down. We saw Texas A&M go down. It was a close game with Houston, but tough shit. SEC, man, what happened? What happened?
Yeah, I think it's like you said, you don't want to go back to the refs, but they just play that aggressive style of defense and they're getting too many calls on them. But you brought up Kentucky. How about Jack Golke? The guy hit, I think, all of his field goals in the tournament were 3-pointers. And I looked on his Twitter today, and he's got like a TurboTax deal. He's got all these NIL deals. He had a Buffalo Wild Wings. Like,
Yeah, dude. He went from, we were looking at it today at work. He went from like having 600 Instagram followers to like 64K. This guy had 600 followers on Instagram.
JJ Watt gave him a shout out too. I think they're from the same hometown. Like he's getting all the NIL money. I wish they would have won. They lost to NC State in overtime. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, he's really taking advantage of that 5 minutes of fame.
Get your deal while you can, while you're the star of the
right?
show. Film that TurboTax NIL deal. Get it done. Get paid.
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, shit. Is he going to have another opportunity? Capitalize on it while it's hot, dude. Let's see. Tale as old as time. Press the iron while it's hot.
He's probably going to need a job from him soon enough, so might as well become the face of the company, get fast-tracked on that management role. Shout out Jack Golke.
I did see some tweets that he will go undrafted, and then Eric Spoelstra will convince Pat Ryan to pick him up, and he'll be playing about 15 minutes a game for the Heat next year.
I did see that. The Heat are already licking their chops, ready for this guy to be an undrafted free agent.
Gonna have to outbid TurboTax.
I want to jump over to the baseball diamond where Trevor Bauer went out there and honestly looked electric. Looked like he added a new slider to his pitch repertoire, or if he did, he added some kind of like, funky movement, because what he struck Anthony Volpe out on was absolute filth. So MLB, get this guy back in. You let all these other people do dumb shit. And I'm not saying whatever he did was right, but I don't believe there was any charges filed. So again, I'm not saying shit didn't happen under the rug, but he also didn't get in any legal trouble. Not sure why the guy's not allowed in the MLB. Clearly can still pitch. Pretty sure he struck Giancarlo Stanton out as well. So playing against an MLB team on a Mexican league team called the Diablos, and 3 innings, no runs, struck out Volpe and Stanton. The guy looked lights out. He's a huge personality. That's exactly what MLB needs, is these personality guys. So get him back in the league. We should see him pitching for an MLB team this year. Manfred, don't be soft. And oh, by the way, Robinson Cano, 41 years old, hit a home run as well. Also for the Diablos, who beat the Yankees, who, as I just said, had guys like Giancarlo Stanton and Anthony Volpe in the lineup.
I believe with Bauer, it did go to trial, but I believe seeing something that the girl only accused him because she was trying to steal his money, and that came out in
Yeah.
text. So like he got off and not charged guilty. But yeah, Domingo Herman got signed and he's pitching after his
Domingo
thing.
Herman like beat up his girlfriend or wife.
And he's still drinking. Like it was all because he had a
And he's
drinking
a
problem.
major alcoholic and was right in the league. So I don't understand why this guy's not in the league.
To be fair, if your name is Domingo, you probably have a 70-80% chance to be an alcoholic. So I don't know if he really ever had a shot.
Or a baseball
No.
player.
Pretty sure he's had multiple incidents where putting his hands on his girlfriend kind of situation. So that guy's still in the league pitching. He threw a perfect game last year.
He did. He's probably drunk for it too.
He probably was hammered. So that's my Michael of the Week, Trevor Bauer, coming out there, getting a job done. 3 innings pitched, didn't let up any runs. Worked out of a bases loaded jam with that nasty knuckle curve slider, whatever you want to call it. Struck out Volpe, who's a fraud. Get this guy back in the league. And oh, by the way, Robinson Cano hitting solo shots at 41 years old. That's also ridiculous.
You think he's back on the juice or what?
Absolutely. 110%. That guy's definitely juicing down there, dude. It's basically legal down there at those Mexican pharmacies. But yeah, that's the Michael of the Week. We do it every week here on Views from Section 400. Obviously, go check out our website, all our socials. You want to see clips of previous Michaels. Obviously, make sure you follow along so you don't miss one coming up in the future. But I think it's time we jump back into the rest of what happened over the weekend, kind of just paint the picture on where we are in the tournament, right? A lot of moving parts, upsets, teams who are absolute wagons, which the UConn Huskies look unbeatable right now, steamrolling through their 2 games. Houston, who is the other very favorited pick, got the job done. Very close game, overtime against Texas A&M, but got the job done. I think UConn looks the far and away favorite. Do you guys disagree with me?
No, and they are the betting favorite. Brian, I'll let you give a little bit more in-depth analysis on the rest of the field. But I just need to remind these Views from Section 400 fans of ours, back before this Selection Sunday ever happened, I did say the UConn Huskies were going to go back-to-back. I do think they're the best team in this tournament. But, I was telling you they were going to lose to Auburn. Well, they don't have to play Auburn anymore. Right now, they're betting favorites on most sites. I think, depending on where you're getting it, at plus 210 to win the whole dang thing. I'm not betting that. I don't think there's enough value. You still got to go win, four more games. Not enough value for me to put money on that plus 210, but UConn definitely my favorite to win it all, especially when I think the only other team that can do it is Houston. And they almost just lost to A&M. If they stay out of foul trouble, though, they'll probably be in that tournament, in that championship game against UConn.
It's insane. UConn has won 8 straight tournament games by double digits. The one team that had a legitimate shot to beat them was the worst. It was Rick Pitino's Iona team. They played a perfect first half. I think it was either tied or they were down a point. And then Dan Hurley was like, all right, let's stop fucking around. And they blew them out in the second half. But that's the only time I can remember during this run that UConn has been legitimately tested. And it took Rick Pitino's brain with not a very good Iona team. But it just goes to show you how dominant they are. And Jack, you did say that they were probably going to go back-to-back. And I was also looking back on old takes we had, and I started off by saying Arizona and UConn were the 2 teams to watch out for. This is back in December. And I pick, of course, Auburn to beat UConn. And then Matt and I both talk about Creighton. They're still in there. We said, don't sleep on Creighton. And my biggest miss of this first weekend is after we talk about Creighton, and I'll put this clip right behind me here and then explain it. This kid, Terrence Shannon Jr. on Illinois, is good enough to be the Kemba Walker of the NCAA tournament, or the Shabazz Napier. He is averaging over 20 points a game. He put up 33 on FAU at Madison Square Garden. And I never thought I would be big on Illinois basketball just because they're always pretty pitiful to watch. But this Shannon Jr. kid is good enough to carry them in March. So if they can stack up enough wins to get a decent seed, I will be looking at them and probably penciling them in as a second weekend team. What do I do when the brackets come out? I put money on a bunch of Mormons. I don't understand. I could have been my Michael of the Week just for how stupid I was, but yeah, I'm not happy about about that for myself in my bracket.
And then how about, since we're all getting everything out, website contributor Myers would have got a wedding invite if Utah State made it to the Elite Eight. So, Brian, how much did you pay off Utah State yesterday after they lost by almost 50?
I mean, I will say I did never agree to those terms, but I guess I could say I agreed to them now that Utah
Well,
State's gone.
that was a disaster game, an
Yeah.
absolute disaster game.
Yeah, speaking of our bad weekend, I did give out Utah State plus 11.5 in that game. So,
They literally lost by 40 plus.
yeah, Zach Edey's going crazy. He set some kind of record. Again, my brain's not working today, but
Yeah, I think he had like 30 points and 20 plus rebounds or something like that.
yeah, it might have been like 60 points in his first two tournament games, first time in forever. But yeah, Purdue's really good. They actually have guard play now, and
They
Edey's a
are
force.
known tournament frauds, though. So at what point do we see that come into light?
Well, they got to play Gonzaga next. That could be the end.
Could be the end right here. It
I
really
mean,
could.
I've got to rooting for Purdue because I hope Creighton's. It's going to be a tough. We'll get more into this on the next podcast, but Creighton has a tough draw with Tennessee. But if they can get by Tennessee, I would rather see Purdue than Gonzaga.
Yeah, and then dude, Northwestern, UConn. I mean, Northwestern like didn't even stand a chance. I mean,
Yeah,
it was like I thought for sure, like 100%. All right, Northwestern might not win, but they got to be able to put up a fight, right? Like it's the NCAA tournament. I get it, UConn's good, but like, come on, this stage of the year, this game, like they got to put up a little bit of a fight. They went into halftime down 40-18.
yeah, no, they limped into the tournament, and it was just Boo Booey can only do so much.
You can only do
Yeah.
so much. And that
Of course, that only so much is upsetting our FAU Owls, and then the very next round losing by 17 in a very uncompetitive game.
FAU
Yeah,
probably puts up a better fight against UConn than Northwestern did.
oh, definitely.
Yeah, I would think they
That
would,
was
but
horrible.
got to be Northwestern in the first place to get there.
Yeah, and look, Northwestern came out and won the second half. So, I mean, I guess they tried to fight, but when you're down 22 at halftime, it's pretty tough to claw all the way back. You know who else won the second half? McNeese State. So we can look at that as well as a close look. As won the
Matt,
second half. Second half money line lock.
Matt, I didn't take you as one for moral victories.
I'll take what I can get on that play, man.
Speaking of take what you can get, I guess we should touch on last thing on UConn. San Diego State will be attempting to get their revenge.
It's a rematch. It has to be more of a competitive game, no?
You'd think so, but I really
NCAA final last year, UConn blew them out. Like it's gotta be. Based on what we've seen from UConn, it's not going to be. But I mean, like, come on, San Diego State. Use that juju and parlay it into a win, dude.
we didn't even touch on this after the bracket was released because obviously there was so much other nonsense that the committee did, but they really didn't want to see the same Final Four as last year. FAU, San Diego State, and UConn all in that same mini quadrant.
They had them all kill each other.
How are you going to do that?
That went, but I think it's going to be. I mean, what's San Diego State's path to victory? Who's their big man? The Lede guy. That guy's probably going to have 40 points.
They need Tristan Newton, Cam Spencer, and Donovan Clinging to all get COVID, and then they have a chance.
Yeah, a lot of really good teams left. I think between the East and the Midwest, I don't think there's a bad team left.
Yeah, I will say, obviously, we're not a fan of the one upset, but this tournament has kind of had that right kind of balance between upsets and the good teams getting through. So the Sweet 16 is actually looking pretty competitive now, where as years passed, especially last year, there were a lot of those teams that had no chance to win it all. That you're just kind of like,
Ryan, are you gonna be all over Iowa State or Illinois?
well, I think now I have to go Illinois. I'm back in on the
100%.
Illinois. I mean,
100%.
I did this is the first year in forever I made two separate brackets because I wanted to just take UConn with my brain and Auburn with my heart. So I am rooting for UConn to come out of that region. But yeah, I do kind of want to see the Iowa State Creighton final though. That'd be electric.
That'd be fun.
To your point about how there's only you don't think that there's too many of those crazy Cinderella St. Peter's teams left. Looking around at all four of the regions, all the 1 seeds are still here. All the 2 seeds are still here. 2, 3 seeds that's gone. That's Baylor, who we knew were absolutely frauds. We've been saying, if I've been telling you that, you should know that they're frauds. They're gone. And then the other one was Kentucky, and we all know what happened there. SEC just didn't show up to play. It was Dillingham, Shepherd. If they weren't going to show out for 30 points, they weren't going to win a ball game. So you still got 1, 2s, and 3s everywhere else. A lot of really good teams left in this.
Yeah, Reed Shepherd didn't have a field goal for like the first 25 minutes of that game. It's pretty wild. Coming into this tournament, he's getting talked about as a possible #1 overall draft pick in the NBA. And then he goes out and puts up that dud. But yeah, Kentucky, all year we were saying they don't play defense. They couldn't stop a paper bag from getting wet in the desert, and they don't play defense.
Yeah, they don't play any defense, and that's why they're another team where if you just keep it close with them, you probably got a shot to win. Dude, I just want to say, you want to get fired up about the timing on Thursday? So 7 o'clock game, Clemson, Arizona. That's out in LA. So there's already the first okay, that's horrible. 7 o'clock out in LA. Then the second game starts at 7:40, which will probably be a little bit behind. That's San Diego State and UConn. That's at TD Garden in Boston. Then they go back out to LA for a 9:40 start. And then the Illinois-Iowa State game tips off in Boston. Says 10:09. That game literally could start at 10:20 at night on the East Coast in Boston.
Yeah, they always do this.
I mean, dude, that's horrible.
And I don't understand it. It's because they want to sell the tickets. They want to sell the 2 games together in a package. But I wish they just did it for the full day. But yeah, I don't.
Dude, not even going to be able to watch Iowa State, Illinois. I'm going to have to go to bed.
Yeah.
That game literally could tip off at 10:30.
Probably will.
That's horrible. A game in Boston ending at almost 2 a.m.
Yeah,
and you got the commercials, you got the lengthy this, that, and the third, because the Sweet 16 now gets a little bit more with dragging shit out.
No, I'm with you, Matt, and it's to me it doesn't make sense because they use the same schedule for Friday's games too. And Friday, I can understand, you want to start them a little later. 10 o'clock is still pretty freaking late to start one. But you want to do that on a Friday, fine. Thursday, I mean, come on, man, we got to work. Your boys got to go to work.
It's all about getting people in the building and getting them home from work to go to the game. Which in today's day and age, just get them. They're going to be at home watching the game at home. You have so much revenue coming from commercials and the refs blowing the whistle every other second that you'd be able to do 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock or even 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock, and you don't have to do it this egregiously. But
I'm more pissed that it's Iowa State, but nonetheless, still ridiculous that it's probably going to be close to a 10:30 tip-off on the East Coast. Playing in Boston, I understand one thing if it was tipping off in LA. No, the LA games are tipping off earlier that night. Boston, Massachusetts, they're going to tip those off close to 11.
No, this is some Rob Manfred scheduling right here, dude.
Oh yeah. Oh, by the way, on Thursday when opening day is.
And they made opening day later this year.
I know.
There's so many games starting 3 Eastern time now. It just this.
Which the other thing though is on Thursday, I believe we're due for some rain, at least in the Philly area. So I think the Phillies opening day game's probably just going to get delayed.
Yeah, the Mets is going to get.
They set that buffer day and Friday where there's no game. Again, another thing that makes no sense. Opening day's Thursday. They have an off day Friday. Then they play Saturday, Sunday. So I guess it's just going to be a normal weekend series like it easily could be every freaking time.
Like it should be.
Like it should be. Instead, they'd want to get, all fired up, start on Thursday, then have an off day. There's not 162 games to go, and you can build that off day into a time when it's actually would be warranted and needed. They're going to do it after one game.
especially the day and age where people are getting like half days or working from home on Friday. You can actually get people in the ballpark.
You actually get people there at 3 o'clock on a Friday. Instead, no, we'll try and get people there at 3 o'clock on a Thursday, and then ship them off to work the next day hungover.
2029, we can only count down the days.
Yeah, watch it get worse.
I probably will. Probably will. Yeah, before we move on from baseball, I should mention JD Martinez is a New York Met. He will not start the season in New York Met. He will start the season in Syracuse Met while he ramps up because for some reason it took them 2 extra weeks to sign him when everybody in the baseball world knew he was going to sign with the New York Mets. And by the way, he announced the signing on Frank the Tank's Instagram. Before anyone broke it, he tweeted eyeball emoji, apple emoji on one of Frank's Instagram posts. And then like 2 hours later, it got reported. But I mean, hey, he's a good player. He's a professional hitter. Everyone always says he's one of the best professionals in the game. And he's old. But in a year where you're clearly not going all in, I guess it pays to just have him be there for the young guys that are around. And one of those young guys you just optioned to AAA, Mark Vientos. So maybe he's there to learn from JD while JD's there for 8 days, but doesn't make much sense to me that you wouldn't have your DH of the future learn from your DH of the present. That's 42 years old. That's not going to be there for a long time.
Martinez, 42?
He's got to be in his 40s.
I thought he was like mid-30s.
Maybe.
Yeah, I would be surprised if he's 42, but you know, he's
Not
got
36. He's
Yeah.
36. I'm sorry, JD. I gave some extra years to you there.
Yeah, that was nuts.
yeah, just a little off there. I mean, he got a ring just a few years ago, dude.
He's a good player.
As
Solid hitter.
as one of the best hitters on the team. So I would say, you can't really do that at 38 or 39 years old. If that was how many years ago did he win that ring with the Sox? Was that 5 years ago?
Well, they were
2019, right? Or
They were
2018.
18. The Nats were
18?
19. So yeah, five years.
So 5 years ago, he wins a ring, as second best hitter on the team, maybe behind Soto. So, what?
That's
Oh, I'm thinking of now. Now I'm confusing the Nats with the Sox. That's why you got to have one team, folks.
there you go.
But yeah, the other All-Star that one of my franchises had that they let go, walk away in free agency. Sorry, just everything is wrong with that.
It's just been a rough week for us.
That was the Phillies guy now, Dombrowski. He had too many loaded guys that they couldn't keep everybody.
Now they got Heim Bloom selling everybody.
They literally couldn't re-sign Mookie Betts.
It's really bad.
Ran out of funds, which was like how you lose Mookie Betts is just. If I was a Phillies
in his prime.
I know that's what I'm saying. If that was like the Phillies who made that move, that's like I don't know how I can ever support this franchise again if you go and do a move like that. Like that was that type of move, and that's why
the best player they got in that deal is now a New York Yankee, which is just.
I mean, they got absolutely fleet. Well, the other teams knew that they were desperate because they knew that they weren't going to be able to pay him, and they knew they probably didn't want to watch him walk in free agency. And look, did he? I guess he won the Mickey Mouse ring, right, with the Dodgers. But other than that, the Dodgers haven't won shit. So maybe it worked out. I don't know. But the Mets and Martinez, though, this screams Jason Bay signing all day. And I like JD Martinez as a hitter. I don't know if you, Jack, said it or Brian said it. He's a pro hitter. Absolute pro hitter. Typical kind of right-handed bat. Was Jason Bay a right-hander?
Yeah, but the difference is you got JD Martinez for a bunch of pennies and a used bus ticket where you paid Jason Bay to be like your superstar.
You did pay Jason Bay to be a superstar.
And some guys just aren't meant to play in New York. And Martinez has played in Boston and LA. So I have no.
He's played in some bigger cities. He'll be fine. And he's just, that classic, just he's a pro hitter, like you said.
I guess Bay played in Boston too. So, but yeah, at least they have some kind of protection now for Pete Alonso in that lineup. And pitchers are going to have to throw to Pete Alonso. Speaking of, were you the fucker that stole him in our fantasy baseball draft?
I was.
I had him teed up, and then I see, out of all people, that's the last person I expect to draft Pete Alonso.
He was the best available right there at that spot. I had to take him. Clearly a good pick since he was lined up by a couple other people after my spot.
Well, look at you putting your pride away.
I had to, man. The only time I don't do it is Cowboys players. That's
I can
usually,
understand that. Dak
and
Prescott.
Giants players strictly because the Giants just aren't good.
I mean, Saquon has been a top fantasy running back for the last couple of years.
Never was on my team.
Fair.
But yeah, no, it was a wild move for me to pick Alonso. But look, he's in a contract year. He might not even be on the Mets the whole year.
Don't put that evil on me right now. I'm still getting over Auburn. I don't need to think about that too. Yeah, this is the final thing I want to touch on before we end the show. The United States of America three-peated as Nations League champions last night.
Didn't the game have to get called early for like racism?
It got stopped twice because the Mexican fans were calling Matt Turner the Spanish word they were calling him a derogatory term in Spanish, so they called the game twice. But yeah, U.S.
like towards white people.
No, towards gay people.
Interesting.
Yeah, but besides that, I mean, 2-0, best score to beat Mexico by. Tyler Adams is back, had an absolute firecracker of a goal. And yeah, the lads are in form, getting ready for the World Cup.
Which is wild because they had an absolute shitbag game against Jamaica and, like, by the luck of their pants, scored at the death to force it to extra time and then win in extra time. But yeah, I'll take a beat down over Mexico any day of the week. Congrats to the lads. I'm fired up for 2026. We get a couple games here in Philly as well as all across America. And the finals at Jet Life Stadium. What more could you ask for on the East Coast?
The Fourth of July game in Philly. If the U.S. comes to the link for that game, that could be electric.
Is that going to be a playoff game? I guess it would be because that'll be closer.
Yeah, it'll be a elimination stage.
Oh, dude, they got to send the U.S. to Philly. That would be absolutely nuts.
It'd be a lot of fun. Oh, you know what? We should apologize. I guess we already writ this off, but another bad part of our weekend, our future, Kansas did lose.
Yeah, I don't feel as bad about the Kansas future because I wasn't as passionate about it. That was like we were
kind
doing
of
a
gave
live
up.
show on a Sunday night and just by the seat of our pants. I think actually maybe it was the Washington game at halftime, right? Or
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, the Washington game at halftime, we just, because I guess that was right in the beginning of conference play for college basketball. We just kind of threw together a Kansas future, which at the time looked decent strictly because Kansas was loaded and then got banged up right in time for the tournament. So very convenient how that worked out. I'll say sorry for McNeese. I'm not sorry for Kansas. I was not passionate in that play at all.
Look, when we gave out that Kansas play, we said we were looking at the odds at that time. We knew it was way too early to be betting on March Madness, the tournament champion, but we were looking at the odds. We were playing the values, and at the time, with how good Kansas was looking, where their value was at, we thought it was a good play.
Yeah.
Obviously, when you're betting on of all things, we're talking March Madness here. You got to go string together 6-7 games to go win the whole damn thing. That's a tough ask for any team at any point, even the day before the tournament starts. So for us to try and give you guys a value pick out early in the season, I don't think we should feel bad about it at all. It just didn't work out. Maybe next time we just won't do it. But I definitely think it was a fun little bet. It was nice to have a little something on a team that nobody was really passionate about. I'm pretty sure Brian had him losing first round to Samford. So
I did.
So it's not like we were putting all of our money behind our mouth there, and it's all right. It happens.
Last question: does NC State make the Final Four? Real quick, yes or no?
No.
No.
Ryan rates them off very quickly.
Well,
no. I think that.
So what? NC State would have to get through Houston.
They have, well, first Marquette and then the winner of Houston Duke.
I mean, Marquette, known tournament frauds, by the way.
Probably
I'm
should have
not too
lost to
high on
Colorado.
them.
They should have lost. Colorado blew that game
Yeah, they were just smoking the
like
Colorado
multiple
weed.
times. They took a page out of Auburn's book down the stretch there.
Yeah,
I'm serious.
I guess they won 2 games this weekend, so I can't really keep going to this well. But dude, DJ Burns has to run out of steam eventually. That dude's
Guy's
too big.
unbelievable.
He's too
Guy's
big to just.
unbelievable.
He's a big boy. He's a
He
big
played
boy.
5 games in 5 days, and then he just played 2 and 2. I don't know. He's got to be running out. That body is huffing and puffing.
The only thing I'll say is they've showed they can win the big games because they beat UNC, and then now have ripped off 2 in a row. So that's the silver lining you can take there with them. But getting through Houston for them would be absolutely a nightmare, probably. But who knows? Houston almost fucking lost yesterday.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we're going to do another one of these in a few days. We're going to go through all the round of 16 games, what we're looking for, what we're expecting to happen. And, we'll finish that out with who we think is coming out of each of these regions into the Final Four. Matt, you got NC State? Maybe, maybe not. I'm going to have Houston. I can probably guarantee you that. I know they almost lost last night or Sunday night. I guess that is last night. But yeah, I'm going to have Houston. But NC State, definitely in a region where I could see it. Things are possible.
It's just ridiculous with DJ Burns, but how that guy looks. But I think that's my cue to not give up too much on what we're going to cover in the next show. So I will not jump through the whole board here. But it is exciting to pick and choose, and I definitely want to leave last weekend in the rearview mirror and jump to the next weekend. But other than that, that's all I got. It's been the Views from Section 400 podcast. A little bit of a laid back one, a little bit more of an apologetic one, but nonetheless uninterrupted sports conversation for the entirety of the show. Make sure you check us out on our website, viewsfromsection400.com, Instagram, IG Reels. Even though they're horrible, the Auburn and McNeese State plays are still up, so you can go have a great laugh at that if you'd like. Those didn't get hidden on the board, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I don't know, man. I need to get rid of last weekend. Baseball's on Thursday. Let's go, Phillies. That's all I got. Peace.
Shout out Jared McCain. 2 games in the March Madness. Many of threes behind. Force him an angel. Go Duke.
You are now in the mix with DJ Savage.
Tom Izzo. January, February, Izzo. Shut up, dude. He won 1 game.